And we are here for another of the Acolyte discussion shows where I have a different guest on every episode to talk about Star Wars The Acolyte, the show at the end of the High Republic era in live action. There's 8 full episodes of the show itself, so there are 7 discussion shows, and we are on the 3rd discussion show talking about episode 4, simply called Day. I believe this is the shortest episode so far. It's at 34 minutes. I think one of the other episodes were quite short as well. It was quite different in vibe to the prior episode. And I want to quickly mention, before I forget, that in the prior episode, I may have said that Star Wars Outlaws is set, I thought, between episodes 3 and 4, and they're actually between Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. I hadn't seen the newest trailer, so sorry, friends, if I did say that on air, which I can't remember. But we are here today to hear from other people's opinions and perspectives, as we have. That's the journey of this show. And this time I have an incredible individual with some very interesting opinions and someone who does disagree with me on a lot of opinions on Star Wars, which is what I like. I am here with Tonya Todd. Tonya, how are you doing today?
Meow. I'm glad you said that because I've been listening to your podcast about this show and I realize I am leaning more in the Dave camp than I am the Math camp.
Yeah, I mean, it's fair. This is a very divisive show. There's a lot of controversy swimming around it, and a lot of the hatred towards it is unnecessary, as I was very vocal about last episode. But there are valid criticisms. There are not.
I don't hate it.
No, it's not. You know, some people go, "This is the worst thing Star Wars have ever released," and I'm like, "Have you actually watched the Clone Wars movie? Have you seen like some of the stuff the prequels? You know, the Ewoks movies and the Holiday Special and certain other things like." Then the quality is not the same. I mean,
definitely not the worst.
Even like prequels. I mean, I'm a massive prequel fan, but some of the dialogue in Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones is atrocious, and I don't think the dialogue in Acolyte has been as bad as some of the worst parts of prequels. But I want to know from you, Tonya, before we delve into episode 4, Day, specifically the last episode. So Math and I were quite positive in part because I think we were almost trying, not consciously necessarily, but trying to almost talk about the controversies around it and a lot of the criticism. So we were kind of thinking about balanced perspectives and trying to even it out a little bit. But we both still did enjoy the episode. I think I enjoyed that episode more than this one, actually. But what did you think about the last episode and why didn't it really work for you?
Well, as you mentioned on your show, I'm not a fan of flashback episodes in general. This one I didn't hate because it was a flashback, and I didn't hate it. There were some really cool elements to it. I like seeing the witches. I like the coven there, but I don't think that they used it well. So, you know, there's shows like Daredevil, when that came out, that used flashbacks all the time, but it didn't make it a flashback episode. It was part of the storytelling. You felt like it was moving forward. It's not, let's halt the story and go back in time and you know, what you want to see is actually what happens well after this, but we're not going to tell you that. We're just going to tell you why all this stuff is happening, but not progress the story in any way, shape, or form. I don't feel like
you don't get the whole story. We only got like 2/3 of it as well, because clearly there's a big thing that's happened that we've missed out that's going to be like, oh, it's a big twist. Oh my God, the Jedi actually are bad. That's what I assume.
The problem with this show to me is that it's very disappointing. There's all this potential. It could be absolutely amazing. They have the necessary ingredients to make it amazing, and they're just not. It's like they're just phoning it in. They're trying to do a good enough job, and some of the storytelling is clumsy. It's like, can it seriously be that obvious what you're trying to say right now? Please let there be a twist, because I haven't seen one yet.
No.
I've seen these things that they're like, ha, a twist. And you're like, ha, everybody saw that coming.
Yeah. Yeah, I think my concern, especially as we're now over the halfway mark and we still haven't got the other half of the story of what actually happened from May's perspective or Saul's perspective in the flashback in the Coven. And what I like
there were things that didn't add up, and that's okay because, as you said, story's not finished.
Yeah.
However, they need to make the characters recognize that there are things that don't add up, and they're not. They're acting like all of this makes perfect sense. No, it doesn't. It does not make sense.
Yeah, I feel like what they should have done is, I kind of said it in the last episode of the discussion, which is, I feel like with this flashback and whenever the next flashback's going to come by, I feel like what they should have done is had it so that they had like maybe a 3-episode premiere, and then kind of had the first episode kind of as it was, maybe a sprinkling of the flashback episode in there, then do the second episode. And when you have the things of showing what Osha and May are both doing, that would be a good opportunity to do what they did in The Last Jedi, which is show one perspective, not the whole thing because it was quite long, but like sprinkle in the introduction to the witches in episode 1, episode 2 kind of show what Osha saw, and then episode 3 kind of show what May saw. And when you see those interwoven into the plot, you would see why the two characters who seemingly experienced the same event in a way, because they saw it from different perspectives, that shifted how they were affected by said event. But instead, it's like, we're halfway through the season, we had a whole episode of a flashback, and we know it's clearly not the whole story, so now we're just gonna hopefully not have another flashback episode, because I'm like you, I like flashbacks interwoven when it's like, I quite like it. I can't remember where I've seen it, but there's like a trope which is like almost Slumdog Millionaire style, where it's almost, how will they know that? But just before they do this, like a triple backflip, you see a flashback of them learning something, doing a triple backflip, and then they go into the next scene, and then they do it, and you go, oh, that's how they knew to do that. That's, I think, how you make it clever and make it flow properly in the story. But as you say, it was just like, right, everyone stop. You know, those characters you were starting to kind of warm to be intrigued by? Yeah, you're just not going to see them for 2 weeks.
Another issue is there's no strong protagonist. Like, we're supposed to follow Osha, but I don't like her. I like May. She's pretty much the only one I like.
Yeah.
Osha has no redeeming qualities. Like, she's not good at anything. She's not happy anywhere. And she ruins situations because she's an adolescent. You know, like the decisions she's making are ones that are made with an adolescent brain. There is a reason why you don't get to choose your future when you're 8, you know? You're not ready for that big of a decision yet. And then she doesn't even follow through.
Yeah. She doesn't have her convictions. She can't. It's like, even in this episode, in Day, it was like, oh, no, I'm not going to do that. No, I won't tell the council. No, I won't. And then Sol confronts her, and he's like, you got to do this. She's like, no, I don't really want to. And he's like, come on. And she's like, all right. And you're like, why even have the dialogue in here of her resisting if nothing of significance actually was the thing to change her mind? It was just Sol talking to her. So just cut all that out. Right. Just have her talk to Jackie and her go, I'm not really feeling this. And she goes, just go talk to Sol. And she goes, okay. And then she goes and talks to Sol. And he goes, yeah, actually, I think you should. And she goes, okay. Not this adding 3 or 4 extra minutes of pointless dialogue of her saying she doesn't want to go.
It's dull. And just imagine how that looked in the script. Like, just, really? We're just gonna do this, huh?
It feels just juvenile. Minutes. This show feels like it's young almost. This almost feels like this would be Disney's first live action show. You know, if this is the first thing they released, you'd go, oh, this is interesting, kind of different. It's not structured the best, but for a first go, it's pretty good. But this is like, you've made Andor, which the script and storytelling and stuff is so phenomenal. You've made characters no one else would care about, integral, interesting characters. Right. And then you've got other shows that have got, you know, Mandalorian's more episodic, so that does work in certain ways and others it doesn't. Obi-Wan was kind of like a movie that was kind of split up. That didn't work, as a bit disjointed. Book of Boba Fett, they had no idea what they were doing with the show. That felt just disjointed. And I'm like, you've had so many tries now, and there's so many people who like Star Wars and are saying they're just starting to give up. And it's like, with Acolyte, I was like, I really want it to be amazing. Since Andor, and I know everyone goes on about Andor, but it's like, it's so hard now because it's like, there's not a real reason why all the other Star Wars shows can't be of the script quality, right, or at least close to something like Andor. Nothing has been like that. And it's the only thing keeping a lot of Star Wars fans in is the animation, which holds up really well, and like Bad Batch, things like that. And then Andor, and everything else is just like, I always describe it like this. It's a good show if you're a Star Wars fan. But if I say to any of my mates who don't like Star Wars, who aren't that fussed by it, if I say to watch Acolyte, they'd watch and be like, this is not good enough for me to waste time. When I can watch House of the Dragon or The Boys or like The Expanse or Mr. Robot or some of these like really big, massive shows that a lot of people rave about. It's like, oh, you can watch Acolyte. And you're like, if you're not into Star Wars, this is not going to really change your mind on it. And that's kind of my problem, whereas Andor did that, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm. And what Andor did is take a character where we already know how that character's story ends, yet we're still invested in the story that's being told on screen. There are other characters where we know that they survive all of this, but yet they found a way to make us invested in the story that was being told. We latched on to other characters. That's not happening here. And we don't know how their stories end. So there should be that fear that, you know, somebody could die or somebody's story could be changed permanently. And we just don't care. We just want Osha to get her, or not Osha, May to get her revenge and move on and live her best life. We don't care about anybody else.
Yeah, and even the kill, like I did really like how the Torbin death when he was doing the Barish Vow, but then I did also go, he kind of just killed himself, and I don't understand how that's different from just committing harakiri and just doing it with a lightsaber. I don't see, conceptually, you'd think, oh, he can't commit suicide because he's a Jedi, it's religious, it's kind of like a monk kind of thing, but then he just drinks poison. And you're like, so why did he not just kill himself instead of going the Barash Vow 10 years ago? Why didn't he just... I liked the idea, but again, it didn't lay down. And then this, I was like, oh, Kelnacca, a Jedi Wookiee. And you go, yeah, he's not going to do anything. He's just going to die immediately. And you're like, it's just every character in the show just die. Like, Indara was the coolest one, and she dies in the first 5 minutes of the whole show. Right. And you're thinking, oh, a Wookiee Jedi. How cool is that going to be to see? And then you see him, and you go, oh, he looks very much like Chewbacca, but that's fine. You know, there's some Wookiees will look like Chewbacca, some won't. That's cool. We get to see what he does. And then he gets killed while sat in a chair, and you're like,
off screen.
And you're like, what? And it all feels like it's trying to do what Rian Johnson was doing. And again, I love The Last Jedi, but it feels like it's trying to be like, oh, diverting your attention. Where it's like, what's the term? Where it's you think you're going one way, and then suddenly it changes, and you think you're going this way.
Redirection.
Yeah, it's redirection. He's kind of doing misdirection. He's doing that. That's what a lot of the humor in Last Jedi was based on, that. The whole Rey feeling out with the Force and Luke tickling her hand and stuff. That kind of silliness, and Luke throwing the lightsaber behind him, all those kind of things is misdirection. But with this show, it's trying to misdirect you, but then there's no actual payoff. In Last Jedi, it was like, all misdirection, and they kill Snoke, and you're like, what the... Okay. And there's big moments that occur, and although all the misdirection doesn't land, there are big things behind it. And we're currently halfway through a season, and we're like, so no one substantial has died, because every person we've died, we basically watch them die and then get more of their story afterwards. But we still don't know the reason why it's relevant. And I feel like the build-up is not going to be a payoff. I think it's going to be, there was a misunderstanding, Torbin ignited his lightsaber, like, after something exploded, freaked out, accidentally killed a witch. One of the witches responded, being, how could you kill us? Boom, angry power thing. And the Jedi, as a kind of misunderstanding, kind of being angry at the same time, all just kind of got each other. And it'll be like, oh, it was a big misunderstanding. You know, May thought we were bad, Osha thought we were good. Actually, we're just imperfect beings. And you're like, I could have, if the whole show is saying that, I'm like, I could have known that without watching the show.
Right, exactly. Like, that's pretty much what you claimed in your first episode.
Yeah.
Which is why I'm disappointed, because there have been no surprises so far.
No, and you didn't even watch the trailers either. And unfortunately,
exactly.
And you were lucky you didn't.
This is why I don't watch the trailers, because look at how clumsy the storytelling is. Look how easy it is to follow. Oh, you didn't see twins coming. Really? Have you seen Star Wars? And their hair isn't the same, you know?
Yeah. And in the trailer, I'm not going to say anything. Everything in the trailer has already been shown, I think, anyway. But the shot we saw at the end of this episode where he comes out and does the blast of whatever power, that's in the trailer.
Is it really?
Yeah, which really aggravated me. So the whole, and it wasn't even like I can just avoid trailers like you, because I'm in so many Star Wars circles. As soon as a trailer drops, I just see so many screenshots of it and memes, and I'm like, I literally don't understand what this is, but it's ruining it for me. And so that bit where he hits the ground, all the Jedi go flying back. So for the first half of the show, a huge amount of people watching it, including myself, knew at some point that Sol and Yord Fandir and a couple of the other Jedi, at least 6 of them, were all going to ignite their lightsaber at the same time and run at he or something, and then a red force blast thing was going to hit them down. So we've known that was going to happen for half a season, and we've now seen it's happened, but we don't get the repercussions. And that's irritating as well.
It does feel like something finally happened. The end.
It feels like... next week. And it's only 8 episodes, and I'm like, but this feels like it could have been 6 maybe. And I don't know, I'm maybe sinking into the negative mindset of thinking, apart from animation, I feel like maybe I just want Star Wars, aside from Andor, to just be movies. Because I feel like Obi-Wan Kenobi, I'd rather it was just like a 2.5, 3 hour movie. I would rather kind of that than this Because episodic things can work. Mandalorian has got its faults, but I think all 3 seasons are good in their own right for different reasons.
Mm-hmm.
I think they do work. Every episode you watch, even if the story didn't go further, you're like, that was cool, or this happened. But we've got this and Obi-Wan, Kenobi, and Ahsoka. We've got one big story, but the story is only really 3 or 4 episodes worth. It's more like an arc of Clone Wars, and they're having to stretch it over episodes that are longer than the animated stuff, and over more episodes than the animated stuff. So it's feeling clunky because you get all this dialogue and these decisions that occur, which essentially just slow down the end goal of the plot. And that's how this is feeling. The flashback and this episode, I'm like, nothing really happened in this episode. You know?
I feel like they haven't decided what story they want to tell. Or what I'm hoping isn't the thing is they're going to be at the end and be like, see, wasn't this amazing? Or we're all going to be like, oh, this thing that everybody saw coming? No, that was not amazing. Why did I have to sit through this thing to not have a single wow moment?
Yeah. Because Kenobi, although it was very much lacking in story, and the whole Reva storyline, especially at the end, just didn't make any sense. They were cool moments. I won't be watching the show.
There were amazing moments. Like the stuff with Vader, I would watch that again. Would I watch the entire series again? Probably not, but I will definitely fast forward and watch some of the fight scenes and just Vader's presence in general.
Yeah, Vader stole the show.
That ship, you know? Like, that is ridiculously powerful. I don't care. I'm watching that. But I haven't seen anything like that here. There have been no, oh, that was so cool moments.
I was hoping that what they were going to be doing is, what I was kind of hoping for is with the Acolyte, is it was going to be almost May and Queen Miz's story, but without the other side, aside from 1 or 2 Jedi loosely having signs of things not really adding up. Like, oh, a gang of bounty hunters have all mysteriously been killed and no one's walked away from it. And they've all mysteriously died at the same time. What happened there? Let's follow that. And inadvertently, this Jedi and Padawan are following a trail that's trying to be covered up by a Sith apprentice. That's what I thought was going to be happening, and that we were going to really connect with the Sith apprentice character, and we were going to sympathize with them, and we were actually going to be siding with them, and the Jedi were maybe going to be, you know, not very likable, and it was going to be a way to show this kind of dark side thing, and then partway through the season they were going to do something unforgivable and horrendous, and that was almost where I was thinking it was going to go, and then they would either both die, or they would kill the apprentice, think that was the master, and then right at the end it would be like, no, actually, the master is alive, and oh, it was Plague is his master or some shit. That's kind of what I thought, and I was like, oh, we get some dark side stuff, that's what I want. I want dark sidey things. We don't have enough of that in the canon. It's just cool to see weird powers and rituals and all that stuff, and we got a little bit of it in the last episode. So I quite liked the last episode because it was different. It was done not the best, but of these episodes so far, it's different. Whereas in this, it was like, you got to get more Jedi. We're going to get more Jedi fights. No, you're going to get more Jedi talking and walking around. Okay, but didn't we get a lot of that in the prequels? Yeah, but that's what you liked about the prequels. No, that was one of the main criticisms of the prequels. What? You've got the criticism of the prequels, but you haven't got the thing that the prequels are praised for, which is Duel of Fates, which is the Mustafar battle. The two of arguably the best lightsaber battles in Star Wars, the franchise. 2 of them are in 2 films considered the worst, and it makes the films either watchable or brilliant or whatever. And this is like, here's all the kind of boring in-betweeny stuff you didn't care about with the Jedi, and we have had no proper fight scenes.
Or care about.
Yeah, and you've got no real fight scene apart from right at the start, and you're like, oh, this is what the show's going to be. Lots of like, fighting and cool martial artsy stuff. I'm like, no, we're going to do that once.
See, they did have a nice opening with, okay, we have Trinity, so she must be a badass. Like, you know, they tricked us into thinking she's a badass. And I think she probably is supposed to be, but even that fight was not amazing. It was cool. There was even like a moment where it was reminding me of a fight in Black Panther, though I can't remember if it was the first one. I think it was the first one. So they're in this bar, they're having this fight, and she beats her with her mind, not with her ability, but with her mind. Like, okay, We saw it coming, but it still looked cool. And we've set up that she's an opponent that is not easily going to be defeated. I'm ready to follow this character story and see what happens. But then we deal with her sister, who just is so wishy-washy, and there's just nothing redeeming about her. She hasn't saved a cat, like they haven't given us a reason to really, really like her. And then they've also ruined their own rules. I'm sorry, Luke and Leia once they realized that they were siblings, like once they spent some time together, they had a connection because they were twins with the Force in them. These two were raised together. They were birthed together with the Force, okay? How can they possibly not know that the other one is alive? I don't believe that. I don't believe that they don't know, that they don't sense each other and they don't feel each other. That's something that happens in non-Star Wars, that twins can feel each other and have some kind of psychic connection. That happens in just regular, colloquial, television or stories. Here we are in the sci-fi universe where we have this huge Force presence, and this is what created them, which, don't get me started on that. I don't feel like it has ruined the canon, like some people are saying, but I do think it makes the storyline less special for it to be Anakin.
Well, I think Anakin, in theory, was the Force doing it, whereas this is more someone manipulating it and indicating dark side stuff. Like what I liked about the last episode, where they're like, "Oh, well, would the Jedi be so happy if they knew what you did?" And it's like, "Oh, I want to hear about that." And it's like, "No, not for a while." It's like, oh, come on, like I don't need every single slight piece of lore or plot thread to be mentioned in one episode and not told for another 2 or 3. I just tell me now. Why be secretive about it?
I said that May is the only one I like, but I do like their mothers.
Mother Anisea is, for me, she's been the best character in the whole show so far.
I like both of their mothers. However, Anisea was kind of weak with discipline. Like I'm watching that going, the reason she's acting like this is because you allow it.
Yeah, I mean, the amount of times those kids were like slapping each other and everyone was just kind of standing and watching them do it. And I'm like, if my kids did that for a few seconds, I'd be, hey, stop, oi, gives up, enough of that. And then it's like, not just stand there and watch them for like a minute and go, yeah, should probably stop.
And they've been raised with only adults around, so they've never seen anyone behave like this. It just doesn't make any sense. It seems like they would be like little adults who would want an opportunity to play. But since they haven't seen any examples of bad behavior like that, there is no reason for them to act like that. It just felt so contrived.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and also with the twins thing, thinking about it, as you kind of link into one of the points you said earlier, which was, why, like, what's the point in the twins kind of being there? And they felt like they couldn't decide where they want to go with the show. Because initially I thought, was it going to be like a Fight Club kind of thing, where they're going to go, here's some here's Osha, and she doesn't remember her twin because she's had her mind erased or something. And what happened is she experienced a traumatic event, someone wiped her mind, she has these memories, and then she realizes the memories aren't quite what they seem because they've almost been edited. And she remembers, like she has, like, the classic scene that happens in lots of films where someone's doing something and then you see it from the real perspective and someone's standing there. Or normally films do it the other way, where someone's there and it turns out they're part of their imagination or they died long ago or something. That kind of idea. And I thought, there's going to be a dark side twin doing something and the light side twin not knowing about it. And then there's going to be some sort of switcheroo or massive, a combination and attack or something. But as of yet, I can't see a reason for them being twins, aside from the fact that they very loosely have to connect the story. But I'm like, the Jedi loosely knowing that dark side stuff is kind of happening. Why do you need an entire twin witch coven entangled storyline to have the Jedi, who are basically the space police, investigate something that might be dark-sidey? Why do you need 3 episodes to explain all that if that is actually going to be the outcome? And I'm just really hoping that the next 4 episodes are really going to pick up the pace, that loads of stuff is going to happen, because this just felt like 1 or 2 scenes this episode. Like I was building to something and then it does and it ends and you're like, oh, fuck off. Come on. And then it's like, so the next episode's going to be really actiony. Probably not. I feel like it's going to be like he's going to do a force blast, he's going to do something and then disappear in a puff of smoke. And then it's
Yeah,
going
I
to be
feel
gone
like
again.
it's going to be over in the first minute or two, and then we're going to move on to something else that just makes us mad.
Title of my sex tape. Yeah, it's one of those.
One more critique, and this is of casting, and I don't accept that it was too difficult because they have Sarah Haley Finn at their disposal. Like, she is the queen of casting. Don't tell me you couldn't find identical twins who looked like her. You don't start out as not being identical and then magically grow into adults and now you look identical. That's not how twins work. You might look more similar. You could look like more like one parent or the other, but identical is identical. And they are not identical, even close. Like, there's no way you could confuse them as children.
They're not even really, they don't even look related when they're young, let alone twins.
They really don't. They just, like, okay, they could pass for cousins maybe, but they don't look like sisters, let alone identical.
I did find that weird. The only thing I could think of was just that instead of having to, I know identical twins do exist in the acting world and things, they can be used for quite a lot, but like, I thought, okay, maybe the only argument I could think of was, even with an amazing director, they couldn't find someone or twins that fit the role, fit the description, who were good enough. But the problem is, and then they couldn't just do one kid and do the whole duplicate thing. They wouldn't be able to do that. But then I was like, I did think about it, and I was like, oh, maybe it's just because the kids are such good actors. And I was like, but they're not really. They're not like Stranger Things level acting. They're just
not
like
phenomenal. They're fine. Like, they're not terrible. They don't have great material to start with, but I mean, that's not the reason. And then also, why don't their accents match? Like, what? You're raised by this person. Shouldn't you talk like that person?
Yeah. The twin thing, it's weird. And it feels like they're not leaning enough into anything. Because I thought, maybe it's going to be like a dyad of the Force, kind of thing that Kylo and Rey had, and maybe that's going to be a thing throughout history. There's some Force dyads. And so that sounds cool, but they've not mentioned it. And I'm like, okay, what? Because where is the twist going? I'm really hoping the show is just way smarter than all of us, and just the last few episodes, it's going to be a big. Maybe not. I don't even need a twist. I just need the plot to go somewhere. But I'm concerned that the problem is that they had a plan for like a story, and that Disney have gone, well, we need people to stay subscribed to Disney Plus. We need long periods of time, blah, blah, blah. So they're stretching it into 2 seasons or something. Do you know what I mean? Because that's what I feel like the weakness was of Kenobi. If you want to have Vader fight Kenobi again and you want to have Leia kidnapped, fine. Okay, you can do that in a movie. But then they decide to add loads of other stuff in, and I'm like, I don't know why,
I don't even want to talk about the issues I had with the Leia and Kenobi stuff. Leia, who didn't bat an eye when he died, like, okay, let's go.
Yeah. But she did name his her son after him in the sequels, so I think that was kind of why they did that.
That should not have happened as well. Like,
well,
compiling bad decision on bad decision. It's not working for me.
Yeah, it's one of those, because when we watched the last episode, when we were on episode 3, and then I was like, I just want to get back to the main story. I want to get to know Yord Fandar a bit more. I want to know Soul more. I'm really excited to meet Kelnacca.
Those are the twins that should have been featured. Is the twins that she actually had in the books, where one of them turns to the dark side.
Oh yeah, Luke and Mara Jade's. No. It's Leia, and it's because Jason Solo, isn't it? He's the one who. Wait, no. In Legends, you've got Luke and Mara Jade have kids, and then also Han and Leia have kids.
Sure, didn't read it.
No,
I'm not going based on. I remember reading this. I remember people talking about this before all of those things came out.
Yeah. There's I haven't read all of the Legend stuff either. Also, your camera has frozen, so it might be worth turning your video off and on again. I thought it was going to realign itself, but it didn't, I'm afraid. So on YouTube, it's your frozen face for a short period of time.
Well, I'm the only one who watches it on YouTube.
Okay. That's mean of you to say, but that's fair. I just thought I'd let you know, just in case you didn't want it to be a frozen image of you for the next few minutes.
I actually stopped watching it on YouTube because I feel like it serves you better to do it through like Spotify or something like that.
It's random. Some of the YouTube videos I've done have got substantially more views than the audio counterparts. The vast majority of the time, the audio dwarfs whatever I get on YouTube. But there's the odd YouTube video, which is like, oh, your videos come back. There's the odd video where it's like thousands and thousands more views than you'd get on audio. And I'm like, what did I do here differently? Nothing. Just complete chance. But yeah, with Acolyte, I was excited to meet all these new characters, and I've just found none of them. Like, everyone online's going on about how much they love Soul, and I think Soul's cool, but
he's fine.
But everyone's like, yeah, he's like Qui-Gon. I'm like, yeah, he is like Qui-Gon, but he's just not as interesting, and that's
or charming.
Yeah. Again, we haven't really seen any of these people fight. I don't know why they haven't done the tropey. Just have two masters dueling, and go like, oh, Padawans, let's show you how it's done, just to give us a bit more action, because I'm like, I don't need loads of action when the plot's good, but the plot isn't drawing me in. So I'm like, can you at least hit the shiny sticks together, make some noises? Can we just have a bit of that while I'm waiting for you to plot?
I don't mind talking if it's interesting.
Yeah.
But so far the dialogue has been weak, and you talk about her a lot, but I don't know her name. The green lady who seems to be in charge.
Vernestra Rwoh.
Her accent is terrible to me. Like, she just seems too contemporary. She does not feel like she is of that world.
Which she's meant to be like, at this point, at least 220 years old.
Yeah, and she feels like she's about 45.
Yeah.
In America now.
Because she is an American now, I think. Isn't she Rebecca Ferguson? No, it's not Rebecca Ferguson.
No, it's not Rebecca Ferguson.
That's the one from June, who's phenomenal in June.
Definitely sounds like just a middle-aged American woman, and nothing is going to make... Like, she pulls me out of the scene entirely. I'm in this Star Wars universe, and then, we have this middle-aged American woman just talking these lines to these characters. Like, she just wandered on stage and is filling in for someone who was... I'm not claiming that she's not a good actress. I don't know what she has been in, but she is not fitting into this world.
Yeah, it's weird because she's such a... I'm reading a book right now, the most recent High Republic book that came out in the young adult element called Defy the Storm, and she's like a main character. And she's going through some stuff in the books. This is 200 years prior. And it's really interesting, her character. But it just seems like a lot of us who know who Vernestra is from the books, it just feels like, why have you brought this character in when she's got no real connection to who she was, and she's really quite boring? So why have you done that? I don't understand.
Well, maybe that's one of their things. It's going to be a big twist. Oh, she's in league with the Sith.
I'm doubtful of that, because I don't think the High Republic authors would let her do that. But I think that just because what they've been setting up in the books is so not that at all. It's kind of the polar opposite. She's almost like an Obi-Wan kind of style, which is just like unshakable. But that doesn't come across on the screen. That's the problem. She just comes across as boring. And
she just comes across as a bureaucrat. And
I haven't got an issue with Leslie Headland, who's the showrunner and stuff of the show. But when we were at a Star Wars Celebration and they came out and did a panel and we got to see the trailer of this like a year early, which is super cool. She came out and she was like, I would cast, the big thing they revealed in Star Wars Celebration was Vernestra Rwoh being in Acolyte, and it was in the High Republic panel, so all of us were super excited. And then she was like, and who better to play her, than my wife? And, people cheered. And I remember thinking...
Married to her?
Yeah. And you go, the thing is that announcing that you've cast your wife as anything in any show when you are the showrunner, regardless of how well it comes out, is always going to feel like hedonism. It's going to feel nepotism. Hedonism is the wrong
nepotism.
thing. I always get them confused, even though they're two very different things. And the nepotism, and it just like, it feels like that. And then when you watch the show, you go, did they just not have a role and they just wanted her to be in it? And they just kind of went, let's just get this character from the books and just make her live for ages and just pop her in. I don't know. But if there's going to be something big with her, you're just like... Because I wondered, because we saw the thing in the trailer...
Okay, but now that you say that, it feels like we just have this person and we're putting her in for no good reason. Like, we cast her for no good reason. Now you tell me that she's married to her. Well, that's the reason.
Yeah, and I don't want to be pessimistic, and I don't want to jump on the bandwagon of people slating the creator for all wrong reasons, but there are valid criticisms of this, and I think that, yeah, if she was the kind of actress who completely changed a character, like there's certain characters, I think like Tessa Thompson's example of, it doesn't matter what any film I've seen her in, if it's a minor role or a major role, she steals the show. Even when she's playing a character that has no specific thing about her, I'm drawn to Tessa Thompson. Not just because she's stunning, but also just like in Sorry to Bother You, she's such an interesting, cool character. In Thor, she steals the show. Like all the different things I've seen her in, she's been great. And I feel like if she was this character, you'd be more drawn to her, you'd be more intrigued. But it just, Obi-Wan Kenobi could be kind of boring, but that's because you introduced to him in the original trilogy as an old man. But then in the prequels, he was kind of boring, but they brought it back by showing he's a good fighter and he's good this, good at that. There was balance. And I thought that when we saw in the trailer, the force pushy thing, I was hoping what was going to happen is really early on in the show, the force pushy thing was going to be this Sith person killing all the Jedi that we saw, all of them, and the Jedi trying to work out what on earth happened. And anyone who kind of splits away from the main pack to investigate and get a bit deeper, they get wiped out. And then eventually the Sith person frames one of the Jedi that's maybe in the pack who's like obsessing over it, manages to turn them to the dark side, manages to turn them. And then what it turns out is the Jedi turn on their own Jedi, thinking that they're the one who's been causing all this, because this Sith acolyte has been going around doing this, trying to bring out the real Sith, and in doing so, that's what gets their attention. And then that person could be Darth Tenebrous, who then eventually trains Plagueis and eventually trains Palpatine. Something like that. I thought that's where they're going to go. It's going to be they're showing all this stuff in the trailer because they're going to, in the first episode or two, all those Jedi are going to die, and it's going to be this complete change of how the thing's going to go. Pull her from dusk till dawn on us. Pull a good place on us. Shows that really change hugely, but you can't, or Fight Club, because you can't show what the change is in the trailer, because it spoils stuff. And that's what I was hoping for. And we're halfway through, and I'm like, oh, these Jedi are just going to survive then? Or are they all going to die? And if so, why couldn't they have just died 2 episodes ago? That's my issue. I had very high hopes for this, and I'm still holding on, because I'm thinking, if I think about the prequels, the first half of each of the prequel movies are all the worst parts. The start of Revenge of the Sith is pretty cool, but that's a pretty good film throughout, I'd argue. But Attack of the Clones and Phantom Menace, the first half of those films are easily the worst parts. So I'm just hoping, with a prequel mindset.
It's really difficult to compare those because they're not written by the same person. Just because it's in the same universe doesn't mean it's the same type of storytelling.
No. Which is Star Wars' greatest... It's the best thing about Star Wars, and it's also the worst thing about Star Wars, unfortunately. It's a very mixed bag, which is upsetting.
So should we talk about this episode, finally?
We've kind of been dotting around it. I have specifically been hitting points, but so we meet Kelnacca, and he's drawn those symbols of the Coven's markings all over his hut. And in the meantime, the Jedi are discussing May, and then they won't tell the High Council, as they don't want to tell the Senate, and they don't want to cause distrust and stuff. And all that, at the meantime, you've got May and Quimir going to find Kelnacca. So of those 3 kind of storylines that will kind of start from, is there anything that stood out for any of them, negative or positive?
When May was walking with him over those cliffs and he was like grilling her, I just had this, just kick him off the cliff right now. Just kick him. He's right there in front of you. Just boom, right there. End this story right now.
Yeah.
Do you
not like him?
No, I don't like him.
Do you not think he's actually the Sith Lord?
I think that they are being so heavy-handed about it being him that whether he is or isn't is going to be disappointing. Because if he is, oh my God, at least hide it. At least try to make it a secret. Oh, this guy wearing basically the same outfit, carrying just, a backpack with a helmet size, talking to her about this thing the entire time. Like, gosh, I wonder what he knows. It was so bad.
Yeah.
That whole situation, you're just going, oh my gosh, please don't make him the Sith. Please don't make him the Sith. Oh, he disappears. This is so bad. It's just, It's weak. It's weak storytelling. The average person should not be able to see it coming, and they have bright neon breadcrumbs pointing to him. So now if it's not him, which how can it possibly not be him? But if it's not him, then it's going to be like, haha, we didn't tell you all the parts, so you couldn't possibly figure it out. Well, that's a cheat. You should give enough information so that the sharp can catch it and the average person can't, and they'll be amazed. But what they've done is either point completely to this person without even trying to be clever, or they're basically lying. It's not even a red herring. It's just like, we told you this because we're lying. Haha, that's how we're clever. We lied. No. Do better.
Yeah. I want the only solace I've got, really. I mean, I'm still, although I'm being very negative, I am still enjoying it. It's just as you say, it's like I'm enjoying it because it's more Star Wars. But yeah, it could be better. And it's so hard to always, I don't want to always compare everything to Andor, but I want Star Wars to prove they can release live action content in series form that's as good or near the quality of Andor. But what it's felt like is Andor, the worst episode is 8 out of 10, but it's really 9 and 10 out of 10 episodes pretty much throughout. And the problem is all the other shows, apart from Mandalorian, that when that came out, everyone was like, this is cool and different and reigniting my love of Star Wars. Apart from like a couple of episodes in season 2, 1 or 2 in season 3, I wouldn't say any of them are like phenomenal. They're all like 7, maybe 8 out of 10, just like really probably 6, 7 out of 10, and a few that are the 8s. And you go, yeah, that's pretty good. But that's how I feel about almost all the shows. I'm just like, Ahsoka, Kenobi, Book of Boba Fett, it's all basically, if I had to rate it, it's probably 6 or 7 out of 10-ish. The better episodes are 7, the worse are 6, and I'm like, it's all right. If it wasn't Star Wars, would I watch it? No. There's far, far better shows to watch, and that's my problem. Whereas Andor is like, it doesn't, even if you don't like Star Wars, that's probably good for you. It's a really...
Right, you don't have to like Star Wars to appreciate the storytelling present there.
You don't have to like fantasy to like House of the Dragon. You know, you don't have to know anything about the Soviet Union to like the Chernobyl HBO show. Like Breaking Bad was a big one, which was just like, you can't, it's almost like, what's the plot? Well, if I tell you the plot is not the good thing. The good thing is how amazingly put together it is. The plot of Breaking Bad, when I watched the first series, I was like, how on earth are they going to do this for another few series? And then they did it for like 6. And I was like, you know what? Fair play. There's the odd episode that's not phenomenal, but mainly The Fly by Rian Johnson. But like, aside from that, it's like the show is so good because you don't know what's happening next. You don't know how, with that premise, they can keep making things happen and it still be interesting. And that's what Andor does. And that's what some of the other shows as well do. And I'm just like, why can't Star Wars has probably the most amount of resources behind it than almost anything, almost any live action show. And you've got a guaranteed audience. So you can, in theory, take risk. But it just keeps feeling like they're going, Acolyte, it's going to be a big one. It's going to be risky. It's going to be different. Loads of Jedi, loads of dark side stuff you haven't seen before. And then before episode in, I'm like, I've seen all of this before. It pretty much done better in animation. All the stuff I think is the coolest in this show so far has pretty much all been in Clone Wars or Rebels. Pretty much. Which is upsetting. Especially because I'm watching Clone Wars at the moment. I'm going for a rewatch. And there's certain episodes that we're watching. And we're like, this is phenomenal. Oh my God, how do they do this? This is meant to be a kid's show. And then you watch a show that's actually loosely meant to be aimed for adults. Learning from the lessons of what worked with Clone Wars. And they go, let's do little bits of what worked. But not really. Focus on those bits.
I knew so little about this show that until I started watching it, I didn't even know it was live action.
Yeah.
Like it could have been animated. I didn't know. You just said that you were going to be doing this series. So, okay, I will watch it and stay current so that when I'm on your show, I've seen all the episodes. So I didn't have any preconceived notions about it. I didn't have any idea what it was. I didn't read the High Republic stuff. Like, I don't know any of the background. I am like the least educated guest you're going to have, like Star Wars educated guest you're going to have. Well,
I mean, you've seen all the animated stuff and there's certain guests that haven't, so... Not technically. I will say no one who's coming on the show apart from Thomas Rochester. He's the only person I think who's read like a decent amount of the High Republic.
He's like Mike level expert.
Yeah. He and I, whenever he finish a High Republic book, is, have you read this yet? Yes, let's talk about it. How amazing it is. And his positivity is infectious, which is why I love having him on the show, because I can almost not say anything negative when he's on, which is great. But the High Republic, like they're all behind me, and I just finished that book as well, and I've just started the next one. Phenomenal. But you literally don't. There's been, apart from Vernestra Rwoh being in it, and like Avar Chris was mentioned when Jackie Lon was speaking to Osha, and they were saying who your favorite Jedi masters and stuff, and Sol was mentioned, but also one of them said Master Chris. Well, Avar Chris is a huge part of the High Republic Phase 1. She's like she's like the main character in essence for the adult novels, and she's renowned amongst the Jedi Order, and she can do all these crazy things, and she perceives the Force as music, all these kinds of really interesting, cool stuff. And she gets a little throwaway mention. And that's literally that, and Vernestra Rwoh being a character who is not, at least not at the moment, consistent with what she was before. I know, and I'm not going to say anything about this, but I know there's a trailer, which I haven't watched, which has a little bit of extra stuff in there, which I've seen a snapshot of. So I know that there's at least one more thing coming that hasn't yet come yet, which is to do with Vernestra Rwoh. But that's it. That's all. There's one tiny breadcrumb, because if anyone's watching and go, what about this thing? It's like, I'm not mentioning that for a reason because I don't want to spoil it for Tonya, but it's like a second.
But these names don't mean anything to me, so I have already forgotten who you're referencing.
No, I know, but if I mentioned what it was, that would take away from the scene in which it exists in. But yeah, I mean, some of the things I did notice in this episode, which, again, these are things which when I spot, I go, oh, that's nice, and it probably adds to my enjoyment about maybe 1%. So it's not a big thing, but like there's a Jedi in the background who is a Keldor species, which is the same as Plo Koon, which is, a little face mask, gas breather things over the eyes. That was cool. I like seeing that. Does it save the show? No.
No, but it's a nice touch.
Yeah. And having
also, the setting in this one, like the scenery in general looked a lot less cheap than the other episodes. Now, part of it is because they're on world, so they're outside. But some of that looked really nice. It looked like they were on location and not clearly in a studio.
Yeah, because I think Dave said that in the first episode. And then
and he was 100% right. And the outfits are too clean, and like they look cool, but they're too clean. And they shouldn't, especially back then, they shouldn't look so clean.
Well, the whole point of the High Republic is it was the clean era. It was...
No, everybody's outfit.
Oh, I see. Oh, okay, yeah. I get what you're saying. Like civilians look really clean, whereas in Andor, you got that proper... Everyone felt like they were wearing their own clothes, and it was kind of strewn together from the same fabrics, but no one was wearing the same thing because it was all handmade, and it was all dirty and well-worn. And
I really liked what you said about the colors that the Jedi are wearing in this, because, they are gold and pure and think that they're above everyone else. I think that was a great point, but Dave is still right that the characters in general, not just the Jedi, but everybody, is too clean.
Yeah.
Especially with it being so far in the past, it would have just been more difficult with all of these people living outside to not have dirty clothes. Like, they just look freshly laundered everything. Like, this is the first time they've worn everything.
Yeah, because again, I think that leads into the whole, what were they trying to accomplish with the show? And again, although we're being very negative, we're only halfway through a show, and if you watch a film and you stop halfway, sometimes you watch a film and it's awful and you're like, I want to jump off, I can't watch the rest of this. But a lot of the time, if you watch a film, often the second half is the big crescendo. It picks up, whatever.
And I'm going to continue. And not because of you, not because of your series. I'm going to continue watching it because I love Star Wars. And you know what? Let's see where this story will take us.
Let's give it a chance. I'm hoping if the next 4 episodes are amazing, then I could be like, oh, I'll rewatch this. But the biggest thing, and I keep saying it, and it really hurts me to say, I'm not getting any rewatchability from any of these live action shows. That's the problem. Andor, Meg and I went to Star Wars Celebration. We watched a sneak peek trailer of Andor Series 2, and we were so pumped we just started watching Andor Series 1 afterwards. And we were like, every episode, we're like, this is just elevated. It's so, so good. Every episode you watch, you're like, oh, the script, the acting, everything is just phenomenal. And then you watch Ahsoka and you go, yeah, that's pretty cool. And then it ends, you go, that was all right. Do I need to watch it again? No. I can watch a bit more Bale and Skull. Some of the action scenes were kind of cool. You know, maybe when the next movie comes out, it's whatever content connects to it, but it's...
See, that's what this is missing too. So there's all these other shows that are middling, but they have their moments. This hasn't even had its moment. Like, there really hasn't been a standout moment yet. And by the halfway point, there should be something that's saying, oh, just wait. You're going to see something on this level again. And I don't feel that there's even that promise anymore.
Yeah, the prologue sort of fight with Trinity, aka Indara, that was like, oh, this is what you're going to get. And I was like, I like this. I like this style of fighting. I want more of this. And then we got a tiny bit of it in the second episode, where you got Master Soul, and when May is trying to fight him, and he just not even got his lightsaber drawn. I said it in the last episode. I said in the premiere episode, I think I did. It's a trope, but I love it. An unarmed master and someone who's like a young pupil with like a sword or something trying to hit them and just sidestepping, like barely moving to avoid it, just to really show how much further along they are. And I thought, oh, we're going to get May trying all these different methods and having to try. She's going to fight Kelnacca. He's going to be a Wookiee. He's going to be like brute force. And he's going to be a lot of big, throwing big things and big swings with the lightsaber. No, I thought she's going to be quick and nimble for him. She had to outsmart Torben and think around it. She had to, with Indara, endanger a civilian. I thought each kill was going to teach her something, and I thought it was going to take her down a path, and maybe there's going to be, again, a bigger plot. Is she being manipulated by him for some reason? Is she going to take over? What's going to happen? And then you go, oh yeah, Kelnacca's just dead, and you're like, but I don't understand how. I assume we're going to see it, I hope, how on earth someone snuck up on a Wookiee who has like Wolverine-style senses, great hearing, incredible sense of smell, more in tune with the surroundings than anyone, especially because he's lived there for God knows how long, in a creaky old hut.
With no sign of a struggle.
No. So how on earth did someone, the only way I can think of is if someone was on the other side of the wall and stabbed a lightsaber through or something, but there was no sign of that. So I don't know. I'm hoping it picks up.
That's what I mean. It's just disappointing. Like, it could have been so cool, but it was disappointing.
And I'm worried the other live action shows are going to do this as well. Unfortunately, we've got Skeleton Crew that's coming out late this year. Do you know anything about Skeleton Crew?
I do not.
Okay. I assume you don't want to know a single thing about it.
No.
Okay.
Just let me know when it's airing. October
or November, I think. But it could be cool. But again, I feel like even the premise doesn't excite me that much. So I'm like, if this premise did excite me and it's just kind of middling, and that premise doesn't excite me. But then again, each Star Wars project I've been not as excited for seem to have been the best ones. And all the ones that I have been excited for have been letdowns. So I don't know. Is there anything you wanted to say about Acolyte before we wrap up? We've been quite negative, but we're just passionate fans and we're not slating anyone involved in it necessarily. Obviously the writers need to step it up, maybe Leslie Headland as a showrunner, but like we're not overtly going after people. It's more so just like,
and I can't always complain about the writers because I don't know what timeline they were given. Like, I don't know how much opportunity they had to strengthen their storylines. It's someone higher than that.
Yeah.
Because let's say they turn in a crap script, someone needs to say, do better. It doesn't fall just to the writers. The writing may be bad, but there are ways to improve that and, either hire better writers or give them more time to develop the story. And I will say the fact that I do like May more than I like Osha is a testament to the actress playing both of them, because one is super annoying and bland and the other, like, I can get behind. Like, I feel her passion and I feel for her.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Amandla Stenberg has been really good. I think she's been fantastic. I still think Mother Anastasia was the standout for me so far.
This is the first thing I've ever seen her in.
Same.
And she was so compelling. Like, just having her on screen, she's one of those people you're just like, I am paying attention to you and you haven't said a word. I would like a series about her. Has charisma. And yeah, I would like to see both of their mothers were more interesting than pretty much everybody else in the series. I wish have you watched the Tales of the Jedi and Tales of the Empire animation things? I have not. They're basically like shorts about, they connect to the Clone Wars. I would recommend them. There's a couple I think you'd really enjoy.
So Tales of the Jedi is connected to the Clone Wars a lot more. Tales of the Empires.
Is that animated?
Yeah. There's 6
Then maybe I may have seen some of it.
Jedi was out ages ago. It was about Dooku and Ahsoka, and then Empire.
Oh, then yes, I did see that one.
Yeah, then Empire only came out on May the 4th, so a month and a bit ago. And that's about Morgan Elsbeth and
I have seen
Barriss Offee.
A few of those episodes. I have not finished that.
They're good. They're cool, but they're not phenomenal. But I was thinking what I would want from Star Wars via creative control is I would release a series.
They stuck so little, though, that I don't even remember what they're called. Just some random Star Wars show.
Yeah, they're not phenomenal. They're good if you're a diehard fan, but they're not like life-changing or anything. But what I would do if I had creative control of Star Wars live action, I would create an anthology series, and each episode would be about an hour, and it would be following a different follower of the Force. Mm-hmm. And one of them would just be like, there's something called the Church of the Force, which is just non-Force users who just kind of worship the Force. And I would have someone and they kind of interact with a Force user, and they kind of get excited and kind of follow them around and all that kind of stuff. I'd have something like that. I'd have a coven of witches. I'd have someone who dabbles too far on the dark side and, does something horrendous.
So what do we need to do to get you in charge of Star Wars?
I mean, there's hundreds of fans, thousands, millions probably, who have got loads of ideas and who could think of
Yes, but yours are good.
Well, the thing is, the High Republic is the best Star Wars content I've read, apart from the Darth Bane trilogy and the Odd book. They're so good. And Charles Soule, who was one of the main architects, and he started the High Republic, he wrote the first book. He is one of the creative consultants on Lucasfilm now. And so he is having more of an impact on what's going on. But when that was announced and this was announced, I was like, oh, he's going to be essentially co-writing this. And he's not been. I think he's very, very lightly assisted with a little bit of the lore just to make sure there's no contradictions to the High Republic stuff, because he's writing the last book as well. Mm-hmm. But I was hoping that, because he's, Charles Soule is a prolific comic book writer and he's made so much great content. And I was thinking he would be a phenomenal writer. So I'm ideas, man. I'm not a writer, though, unfortunately. But Tonya, you, however, you do everything. You're talking about me, you should write stuff because I could just waffle on in podcasts. But you are a writer and a filmmaker and an actor and a podcaster, and a cool person in general and loads of other things. So why don't you tell us, the audience, what you've got going on, especially a certain little film project that's rumbling on.
So I'm still in editing for Mourning Sacrifice. The last cut looked really good, and it's supposed to be a short, but it's going to be a medium short, like, a medium length film. It's not quite long enough to be a feature, not short enough to be an official short, depending on which festival. So I'm at the place where I'm making my lists of different festivals and trying to figure out a strategy. But until I have the final product, I am not going to share it anywhere, because I want to put out the best content possible. And if that means that, we're still working on it months from now, then that's what it means, because it's not like any of us have the budget to just like ship it off to some team of editors. Because once the editing is done, which is really, really close, then the composing needs to happen. So that's where we are with that. And then this, and many of your listeners probably know this, but Tony, Farina, and I edited Comics Lit Volume 1, which is coming out in October. We love the cover, and we've already been greenlit to do 2 or 3 more. I mean, really as many as we want, but we have 2 or 3 in the works. Like we've already started collecting essays for the next volume, and he and I are working on a joint essay for next one. And then we talked about what we're doing for the third one as well.
So I've got to have my phone for YouTube watches. I was going to share my screen, but that'll take away from Tonya. So there's a copy of the cut. And that was just literally, you Google Comics Lit Vol 1, and that's what comes up. So, sorry, I've pre-ordered it as well. And you've got loads more. And you've got a very cool foreword. And you've got some more as well, very cool ones as well, which are in the potential for the next volumes. And there's friends of the show, and obviously fellow Femon host as well. Alison, she's contributed to it as well. Obviously Ada's contributed to it as well. So you've got some incredible individuals that are loosely connected to this podcast, and obviously a lot of individuals who have not yet connected with it. But you've got that coming out as well as a movie. And then you've also got other book projects going on in the background as well, I know, as well. Plus, you've got the Femon Collective podcast stuff, or when you have time for that, you release, active activism, as well as other random guest spots you do. You do certain things with the And I Thought Ladies. You do other, you are a speaker at a lot of events as well. You're so busy.
I am busy, but I'm making time for you when you come to Las Vegas.
Yes, I'm very excited. Very, very excited. So the next time we speak is likely to be in person.
Yes.
It's going to be very, very cool. Is it people can find you at MsTonyaTodd.com and also on social media. I've already written out the show notes for this, aside from specifically what we spoke about.
You have the best show notes. Like I just go and I copy yours and then fill in the blanks. Like just anyone who doesn't know how to get started with show notes, go to Mike's show, use it as a template. He rocks with that stuff.
I use my own as template, so I just copy whatever I used for the last episode and then pop it in and tweak it just so I've got a loose structure going. But I've already written all the things. So in the description, I've got your website. I've got the link to Mourning Sacrifice, your upcoming short film or mid-film, as well as a link to Comics Lit as well, both Amazon UK and Amazon.com. Or would you prefer it goes to a different site? Because I generally don't buy from Amazon as much, but everyone can access it. So I'm never really sure.
That's fine. You get 15% off the pre-order right now if you go directly through the publisher, and I can send you that link.
Do that, and I'll put that in the show notes. That'd be fantastic. Amazing stuff. You're doing loads of crazy things, and it's amazing. Thank you so much for making time for me. Always love chatting with you, even though we spoke for like half an hour before you were recording, because we're just good friends. Love it. But thank you definitely for making time. I can't wait to meet you in person and stuff. It's going to be great fun. And I'm sure we'll get at least a photo as well. I need to definitely get a photo so people on social media can see it's true. Is there anything else you want to add before we finish this call?
No, we're going to stick with it and, hope to be surprised. There's still hope, right?
There is hope. But when it finishes, if it is a disappointment, a week or so after it finishes, we'll meet in real life. So
That's
either
right.
or, it's okay. But friends, thank you so much for tuning in and listening. Please tell us your thoughts. Do you agree with Tonya and myself on this episode? Are you starting to, wane a little bit? Are things starting to bother you? Or are you still super optimistic? Did you really enjoy this episode? Please let us know. Like and subscribe if you're on YouTube and comment, all that jazz. Share on social media. Subscribe to the feed. All that great stuff. And of course, may the Force be with you.